Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Jaeger Anderson with JaegerAndersonPhotography.com, and today we will be going over the next steps in our boudoir portrait skin retouch process, and I'm excited to show you what we've got in store for you. Let's get started. So before we begin, I just want to mention that this is the second video in a series of videos on my skin workflow process. And so if you haven't seen the first video on getting the skin prepped in Capture One, I highly recommend that you check that out before proceeding. Or if you prefer, if you've already seen that part, or you feel like you don't need to, or use a different, raw processing engine, feel free to jump right into this one. But if you're curious about the interface that I'm using, which is Capture One, I highly recommend that you refer back to that last video. Now, with that out of the way, let's get started. Now that we're in Photoshop, I'm going to run some frequency separation. I'm going to start with my low layer, and it's going to run some actions that allow me to separate the color from the texture. I'm going to take a look here. I think I need to bump that up just a little bit. I want my image to be pretty blurred. We're going to go for like 12, see what that looks like. That looks pretty good. Maybe a little more, maybe 14. I think I like 14, so we're going to go with 14. I'm going to run that again, press enter, and then I'm going to run my 16-bit high layer. And what this is showing a solar mask, which allows you to see a lot of detail, and the high layer, the texture layer of the image. All right, so with that out of the way, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on my high layer. I'm going to hit the J key to select my patch tool, and I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to do a little cleanup on anything that looks like texture that I don't really want in the final image. So you'll notice that by using the frequency separation as a process, or within my process, I can clone something, say here, which is, with the skin tone, and I can pull it over here, and it pulls in a little color, but for the most part, it doesn't really pull in that much, right? So I've separated out pretty well the color from the texture, and that's really important. I haven't done a perfect job, but for the sakes of this tutorial, it's good enough. And I will say, knowing exactly what the blur radius needs to be for those takes some time and takes some practice. Sometimes I get it right out of the gate, sometimes I don't. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going through, and anywhere I see texture that I don't want, I'm just getting rid of it. There's some moles here, not a huge deal. I like to use the patch tool rather than the spot healing brush tool because it is sort of irregular where you clone from, right? It's wherever I draw, and so it's less perfect than the healing brush tool, which is like a perfect circle. I sort of like the randomness of the patch tool. So as I mentioned before, if you are interested in learning more about this process of frequency separation and how I've set things up, let me know. I'll be happy to show you how I do that. Right now, it's just an action that I use, and that speeds up the process. And I'm actually going to be doing another type of fancy frequency separation, which is what the series is actually about, which is the new process that I use for cleaning up skin very quickly. So right now things are pretty standard with this setup. We had our prep in Capture One, and then we come into here, and what we've essentially done is we've begun our frequency separation. Anyone who's used to doing retouching on skin or retouching in general will do frequency separation as part of their editing process. Frequency separation gets a bad rap, Maybe it's deserved, maybe it's not deserved. I think there's some processes that work better than others. But one of the biggest critiques of frequency separation is that it makes the skin look too perfect. And oftentimes people look like they have plasticky skin. I am not a fan when people go overboard. It's very popular these days on social media specifically, where people will edit their photos so perfectly that their skin has no irregularity or any inconsistencies. And it's fine if that's what you're into. And I think it is important to know how to perfect skin. But I think I think a perfect retouch has real elements of texture involved. And what oftentimes happens is that people will just use frequency separation and completely smooth out the skin. And there's no texture. You gotta have texture. So that's why frequency separation gets a bad rap. I think that's fine. I think that's nice, quick. I'm not even gonna worry about the low layer really, because I'm gonna be doing something fancy for that. I am gonna come in, do I wanna mess with the hair? The hair's got some flyaways. I think for this edit, I might go in here and get this up around the eye a little bit. Oops, didn't mean to do that, sorry. Gotta select my layer first. That's fine. Clean up around the eye a little bit. Let's get in a little closer, see if we can. I'm gonna go to my stamp tool. That often is a little bit more precise, a little more helpful for cleaning up these sort of things. And again, because I'm using frequency separation, I'm just cloning texture, so I don't have to worry about the colors or the color differences between these areas of skin. Yeah, that looks good. Done is good. I think for the sake of this lesson, we are going to focus specifically on the new processes. So I just want to get the normal stuff out of the way. That is good enough. Good enough for me. All right, so the next step in our process is we're going to create a new stamp visible layer, and from there we're going to create this really cool technique that I've discovered through taking classes with Jake Hicks of Jake Hicks Photography, and it is a really nice and quick way of making the skin look really nice, not too smooth. It looks really weird when you first start it, and you can easily overdo it, but it really speeds up the process for editing on the skin, and I think it's in a very effective and a cool way about going about cleaning up any type of portrait that you have, whether it's a boudoir portrait, even a professional portrait, a business portrait, you might use the same technique. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a stamp visible layer here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go filter, we're going to go blur, and we're going to go Gaussian blur. And we're going to look at a number that is divisible by 3. So we're going to try 21, or we could try 15. I think 21 looks better. And we're just looking for, oops, not that number. We're looking for 21, and we're looking for a number where everything looks pretty blurred out. Now we're not going to press enter. We're not going to commit to this. We're just remembering that number 21. And you'll get this process in a second. All right, so we're gonna hit escape. Go filter, other, high pass, and this is where we're gonna put in that number. So we're gonna put in 21. We're gonna commit to that. We're gonna hit Command I to invert it, and then we're gonna go filter, blur, Gaussian blur. I'm gonna use that number, which is 21 divided by 3, which is 7, and so we're gonna hit OK. And then we're going to change our blend mode from normal to linear light. Now that looks pretty awful, but bear with me, it will turn out all right. All right, so we're going to hold down Alt and hard mask, and that'll create a black layer mask. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use our brush tool, just a normal brush. Doesn't really matter the flow. We'll bring the flow up to 100, I guess. Keep it nice and soft. And what we're going to do is we're going to paint over anywhere where there's skin with white. And actually, we're gonna paint over the whole face. We're gonna get the lips and the eyes and everything in there. Anywhere where there's even a little bit of skin. And don't worry, what we're gonna do is we're gonna come back and we're gonna fix it up with the black brush. And I know this looks really funky and really weird right now, but I promise you, the end results will be worth it. All right, great. So now that we've covered our image and we've kind of painted in all the skin areas, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go back with a black brush and we're going to reveal the textured areas that we want to, or the areas that are significant that we don't want to affect with this mask. Hit the X key. Gonna bring our flow down, probably around 8. Bring back the lips. You can probably bump that up a little bit. Naturally, got to bring back the eyes. And the eyebrows, right? The important thing here too is that we want to make sure that we don't wash out any of the highlights with this effect. Got to bring back those highlights. So like the highlights above her eyes, the highlights in the corner of her eyes, we want to make sure those are preserved. And we can always toggle this on and off, right? So there's a nice little boop, little glow on her nose that we want to bring back. We want to reduce the haloing around the hair, so bring those back. Eyebrows, of course. Right around the face. And the cheeks. Got to bring back that jawline. And what we'll do is we'll turn on and off this mask and we'll be able to quickly identify where we need to make changes. Some things would have made this easier, right? Like if I had removed a lot of these flyaways from the arm. Not entirely necessary on this because I mainly just want to focus on this process, which I'm demonstrating to you right now. Bring back this shadow, bring back this crease in the arm. And I'm just going over the outline of the body. And anywhere there might be a highlight. So I might look here, see if there's any highlight I want to bring back. There's a little bit of a highlight down here I might bring back just a little bit. Obviously, got to get rid of it around on the lingerie here. Got to bring back those areas and along the edges. All right, let's zoom out, see what we've got. So you can see, now this is way overdone, but you can see how it's made the skin look a lot more even, right? So let's go in here, bring back this highlight a little bit. But that looks essentially like it. Gotta bring back this one here, that hair. Okay. All right. That looks pretty darn good. So now obviously that looks way overdone. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna bring this down by a lot. So we're gonna click on our layer. I like to float around maybe 40. I think 40 looks good. I think that reveals a lot of the underlying texture, but takes care a lot of the gradients in the skin. Okay, so now that we've done this sort of new method of smoothing out discoloration in the skin, it's very fast, it's very quick, as you saw. What we're gonna do is we're gonna add a little more texture back into the skin using a high pass filter. So I've gone ahead and I've created a stamp visible layer, Command Option Shift E. I'm going to go to Other, High Pass. That'll be way too much. We want to bring this just where we're looking at the skin. See how the skin looks? Maybe 3. That looks pretty good. I'm going to change this from normal to probably vivid light. Looks pretty good. We'll do vivid light. And what we're going to do is we're going to hold down Alt, fill that with black, and we're just going to go through and we're going to paint in white where we want that extra texture. So I'm going to do it here on the face and the skin, and the cheeks, maybe here above the Cupid's bow, on the lips, add a little bit in the eyes, eyebrows a little bit, bridge of the nose, and that looks pretty good. I might bring it back here too on the arms a little bit, do a little painting in here. On the hands. That looks good. And what I'm going to do here too, now on this layer, is I'm going to drop it down just a wee bit so it's not so strong. And that looks good. Just bring in a little more texture. Looks good. There you have it, everyone. We have just completed our workflow for our skin retouch workflow. In our next video, we'll be going over how to do our local and global dodging and burning. And then in our final video, we'll be doing a color grading lesson. I hope you found this video useful. And if you haven't yet, be sure to click like and subscribe. I'd love to have you along for my journey and my process as I continue to grow my YouTube channel. If you found this helpful, please feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions or you'd like to learn more about frequency separation. Drop a comment below and let me know what you'd like to learn next. We'll see you at the next one.